we got DJ Semtex here, and this is actually part 2 of a podcast that him and I did on the Hip Hop Raised Me podcast a couple weeks ago. Before Certified Lover Boy, before Donda dropped, we talked about what we felt going into these albums, what we expected, and now we're on the other side. We've heard these albums a few times. We've seen what the artists have said. We've also heard a bit of the drama as well. So now that we're a bit removed, Sem, how you feeling about CLB? How you feeling about Donda?
All right, I'm going to try to be as diplomatic as possible because, for the last couple of weeks, we just seen, it's almost like the media's pushing a, whose side you on kind of thing. And this album's done this amount of streams in 2 days, and this album's done this billion streams in 3 days. And it's like, but the bottom line is when it comes to the music, Donda is a masterpiece. It's more Kanye West greatness. It's an amazing album. It's one of his greatest albums. I think everything about it, the detail, the structure, the concept, the way that the music is put together, the way that it's composed, the way that he's used rappers beyond their best abilities. He's pulled out the best of them. That's the best J Electronica verse we've heard since, Exhibit A. It's like since way back. And I think with, the same for the way that he's worked with Playboy Carti, Little Durk, and 5-Year Foreign's done the best verse of his life. So I feel like it's a very, very real win for the culture. I feel like it's a very great return for Kanye West. I think it's been difficult for him for the last few years because, what he's been through and, yay being yay. But it's a very, very great milestone within the culture. It's a very definitive marker. It's a very great snapshot of what's going on right now, of who some of the greatest artists are, of what the sound is. And it's also classic Ye at the same time. You can hear elements of Yeezus. You can hear elements of 808s and Heartbreak. You can hear elements of, College Dropout, because Jesus Walks is basically the blueprint for this album and the Jesus is King album. And it's like a massive, incredible full circle. It's an amazing album for the culture. With Drake, I feel Drake's done Drake. I feel Drake has done Drake business. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I think he knows what his audience is. He knows the lifestyle that he's going for. I feel like he knows the kids that he's appealing to. He knows how to use popular culture, just everything from the cover to the Way Too Sexy track. When I heard the Way Too Sexy track, I was like, what the hell is this? I was like, what is this what we're doing now? But when I saw the video, I was like, this is genius, and he's took it somewhere else. And I think he's took it somewhere and had fun with it. I feel like even though he's done this before and he's not afraid to do something comical, but I feel like it's that Lil Nas X lane almost. It's almost like he's going in that territory where it's just massive, super pop, And he did warn us all that people ain't gonna like this and this, that, and the other. But the video is incredible. He understands meme culture. He understands the internet perfectly. So he's done an incredible album that will work for him. He's done an incredible album that utilizes the internet, that utilizes the language of youth culture. They're two very, very different albums. You can't compare the two. You can compare two rappers. You can compare the business of and the rollout of one against the other, but they're still not the same. We've done what Kanye did. I don't think anyone else can do. With the listening parties, he's done an album which is basically a tribute to his mom. And I saw the comments like, "Oh, I'm exhausted listening to this album. It's 1 hour and 47 minutes long." People go to the cinema to watch films for 3 hours. It's like, come on, man, what the fuck is that? Like, really? Like, what? That's not even a valid criticism. That's silly. Like, you'll listen to a playlist for a certain amount of time or whatever, and it's a very I don't think the criticism is warranted. That's my opinion. I think with the Drake album, I feel like Drake's done Drake. Could have done a bit more. He could have pushed the envelope. It's the same features. It's the same territory. It's the same kind of tracks. It's the same moment. The Rick Ross and Lil Wayne joint, incredible. Like, I wanted more of that. That's what I want.
I hear that. And I think that's a good distinction between the two, especially we're talking about Donda. I got the impression from listening to it that this felt, and when you think about the listening parties as well, this felt a lot more like a play, right? The musical. You are listening to a musical and the sequencing of that. And of course, musicals are what, 2 hours, 45 minutes, 3 hours long. And that's the impression I got. And Donda, as well as Kanye specifically, has been someone that has always challenged the narrative and has been willing to do things differently. And I got that impression with Donda. And for him, you're right, this wasn't exactly the standard go around. This wasn't like a formula that he's done necessarily. Sure, there's production that sounds 100% like Kanye, but this album is very different than Ye, is very different than Jesus is King or The Life of Pablo and all those others before. It's such a different project. And I think he's given us something to go back and look to and listen to in a way that a lot of fans don't feel like they've had from Kanye in several years, at least, just given some of the reception and the way people feel about the last projects. To your point about Drake, I agree. And I know I've written about this before. This is a machine. This is a music industry machine that understands what needs to be done, how to generate hype, how to put the music out there, and what type of flows and melodies are done. So it's almost perfectly engineered to be this album that can dominate the Billboard charts, dominate all the discussions. And I think everything from the marketing of it to all that is there. I think, and this is the point that I got from what you were saying as well, is that so much of the discussion, especially I think for people that live in hip hop Twitter or on Reddit and places like that, can be so marginalized to, well, what did this sell the first week? What did that do? And I know that even myself, as someone that analyzes this, I can contribute to this as well. But it's so futile to focus on those types of things. It almost reminds me of, what if people were having these same type of conversations when, the Blueprint came out and, Ja Rule, Pain is Love is selling more than Jay-Z, The Blueprint. People aren't using that as the narrative to say that, okay, Ja Rule is, a more successful artist at the time. And I feel like people don't realize that that's the same thing that's kind of happening here now with the way we're talking about those things. What album will live on further on? I think that'll be an interesting discussion. I think Drake, in a lot of ways, we now know what to expect for the shelf life, if you will, of his albums as they come and go. But Kanye, it's different. So it's going to be really interesting to see the Donda impact and how that lives on.
I can tell you what's going to happen. Donda's immortal. Musically, it's immortal. It really, really is. And it's like, even if you look at the meaning behind the title of the album and the concept, I'm listening to Donda. I like Donda. Donda's a masterpiece. He's immortalized his mother. He's more than a tribute. And I think with the music, like the joint God Breathed on this, that's an incredible, powerful track. Like, to have the audacity to say that, but it's also the coolest flex. Is the greatest flex you can ever have. Like, it's the greatest. If you're an art student and you do your best, God breathed on this. You know what I mean? That's the highest rank you can give something. So it's really interesting to see the reviews on Donda as well, because over here the Independent they gave it a 0, and then they did a review of their review. And the Guardian's review, where they gave it 2 out of 5, and you could see that they hadn't even listened to the music. It was more about, he's done something with the baby, he's done something with Marilyn Manson, and and he did this, and it was more judging that than anything else. And I'm not even going to comment on that, whether that's, I get it, but you can't punish the greatness of a body of work, publish it, and then review it. It's kind of like, it's almost like artists, the provocateurs. It's almost like the press are doing that with this album. It's crazy. It's like they're trying to do what they think Kanye's trying to do. So it's like, so you could say that Kanye's provoking by having the baby Marilyn Manson on there. But they're doing the same thing, saying, hey, look, we've given it 0 out of 5, and we're going to review it as well. what they don't realize is that's actually helping streams. It's just more conversation, because I think anybody who's sane and is listening to the music knows what it is. They get it. They know what it is. It's like, and it's like I said, going back to God Breathed on This, he's rapping is a hip hop track, but there's choirs that sound like something out of, Revenge of the Sith. It's very, very dark, but it kind of isn't. It's actually a track which is the ultimate, most empowering flex. So I think when you, and there's more elements like that throughout the album. The Hurricane joint with The Weeknd. I mean, whether both artists like it or not, that has to get a Grammy. It has to. It's an incredible track. It's like anybody who's on a Grammy committee and doesn't put that track forward, and I don't, whatever category it is, whether it's record of the year, hip hop record, Christian rap record, whatever, it's like that track has to be in all the categories. You can't mess with that track. The greatness of it, the magnitude of it, the message in it, what it means, and what it says, and it's reflected within the streams. Like, people vote with their feet. You can't trick that many people into streaming it. Like, all right, so he's had 3 massive events, listening events with 40,000 people at each event. All right, so let's say it's just this fan base, like 120,000 people, and a few stands in the UK as well. You ain't getting that many streams. It's like that people are gravitating to the music. The music's working. The music's connecting. So the shelf life of this album, I would say, as a Kanye West fan, this is one of his classics. This is up there. This is on the shelf. This is a guy who's done 10 albums, and all of them, actually, you could call it 9 albums, because the Ye, it was the EP. It was never classed as an album. Somehow that's now in the catalog as an album. But if you look at all the albums that he's done, everything's excellent. Everything's classic. This continues, and this is almost like the marker that completes a set of 10. This is almost like 10 years in the making.
It's almost like it's like the anthology, right?
Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to say anything negative about it, because I don't see that. I can't hear the negatives. If you're just listening to the purity of the album, the cover's black. It's just titles. There's no features in the titles, so you are just accepting it on the merit of the music. There's been no big videos. There's been no, you know what I mean? It's not been forced down your throat, and it's just like, so when you listen to it, whether you're on your commute, whether you're going to college, school, or whatever, whether you're just chilling at night, it's amazing. You cannot. It's very difficult to critique it just on that merit. You can criticize Kanye all day long. I don't like what he did with Trump. I didn't like the fact he got with the Kardashians. I knew what was going to happen. He predicted what was going to happen. He said it in tracks. But with the music, you can't fault him.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the point you made earlier about the reviews is a really interesting one, because I saw the reviews for Donda and a lot of them panned the album. But I also saw a lot of reviews for Drake as well. And Certified Lover Boy, I mean, you could pick the outlet. People would say, oh, it's hollow, it's this, it's that. And I wonder, okay, how much of that is honest and legitimate versus how much of that is aligned with how I think media and music criticism has changed in the era of social media. Because I think there's certain people that people feel a bit easier to have a critical opinion on, or say what people want to be heard about that person. And I know that, for instance, there's a lot of journalists that don't even touch criticism of someone like Beyonce. Let's say that, Beyonce is preparing for this next album. They might have a critical opinion, but they don't want to be the person that becomes the screenshot that says, Beyonce's debut album, Dangerously in Love, it's fine, but she's no Ashanti. I don't know if you remember that one, but that was from, I think it was 2003 when her debut album came out. But no one wants to be that person, especially now with the way the Beehive is. But to the other extent, there's a narrative out there. People love to, hate on Drake for how long and how, to use the words of a few journalists, hollow his album has been, or even Kanye, and a lot of that being a virtue signal, not just for his album, but for some of the broader transgressions and actions that he's done in public in recent years. And I wonder, in this era, then how do we really look at the that journalism critique? Maybe to your extent, it's what the Independent and Guardian Balance have done, where people are doing reviews of the reviews and being honest, but of course there's some exposure there. So that's something that I think about.
I think for journalists it's a different day, right? And I think they used to have albums 8 weeks up front. They used to have albums ahead. They'd be invited to the studio to hear the process, and they'd have the inside scoop. Now they're like everybody else. Now it's like join the queue. Now it's like on Friday, if you're a superstar in the UK, get up at 5 a.m. to listen to it. And in Friday, like even for me, I have to have my opinion ready. I get it. My listeners are like, what do you think? I've got to have answers straight away. I've got to have a read on it. So even to the extent with Donda, it dropped on Sunday, and I was going out for a meal with my family, and we were in the car, and then I was like, what? Donda's dropped, and my kids was like, yeah, didn't you know it dropped 30 minutes ago? I'm like, all right, I've been a little busy, you know what I mean? So then I'm like, straight away on my timeline, Stem, what do you think? And I'm like, I had to listen to it through the speaker of my phone because I didn't have my headset. So I'm listening to the album from the speaker of my phone because I need to have an opinion straight away, right? It's not the best way to listen to music, but I can listen to it. And I can get my first review that's on my timeline. I stand by that review, and it was a read. When I lived with it for a week, I did another, and I pretty much said similar to what I said earlier. And basically the immediacy and the need to have a review in place, for me, if that's what it's like for me, I don't know what it's like for publications where they've got to keep up with public opinion, because the public have made their mind up. I see it every week when I do my radio show. A track can drop at 6 p.m. I'm on air at 9 p.m. Yeah, play that new da 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 da. And I'm just like, they've already consumed it, listened to it, and they want to hear it for the 20th time on the radio while they're out. So it's like, you have to keep up. And I think that's the problem. I don't know if journalists look at it like that. I don't know if, because the prestige of what they had before is gone. Is the public, an Uber fan's opinion is as important as anybody else's, and I think that's the problem that they've got. So I feel like it's very easy to get attention by giving a negative album review. It's almost like business for them to do that. So, for instance, I don't know if you saw it, Pepper the Pig, the album got a better review on Pitchfork than Kanye West. And then Pepper the Pig, whoever does the account, tweeted that we didn't have to do that. And it's all bullshit. Like, I find that shit offensive, because what you've got is a corporate entity that does Pepper the Pig using their account to diminish a very credible musician, regardless of genre. And then you've got Pitchfork, who I've never put them on a pedestal. I don't give a fuck about what Pitchfork review. I really don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, it has no bearing on my life whatsoever. It has no bearing on my opinion of music. And I feel that's the same for everybody else that I know who's a fan of music. So you've got one entity that is punishing a project, and the fact that they review projects again from several years ago and admit they were wrong or whatever, just shows it's all bullshit. It's all flawed. And I just think it becomes like it's a very horrible, self-serving marketing, brand building exercise at the expense of artistry. And I think that's bullshit. And I think that's, the more that these publications do this shit, the less relevant they're becoming in the conversation of music. And it's why artists won't talk to people like that. An artist is more likely to talk to me or you because they know what we're about than some publication that might take something and twist it and turn it into some other shit. I see them do it with Rick Ross. Someone was begging for an interview with Rick Ross one time, a journalist, and then when the piece came, it was just like a piss take piece. It was just like they mocked him. Like it was just, and I think that's why artists, and going back to your point about Beyonce, you don't see Beyonce interviews. You don't see Beyonce reviews. And I think even what she did with the Lemonade album where it just came out and everything else, it defeats the whole what we think is the single and what's going to work and da 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 da. The fans dictate everything now, and I think that's better. I think that it's a better place to be. I think it's better for artists, it's better for fans, it's better for music. So I think the less gatekeepers are involved, the better, in my opinion.
And I think part of that difference too is that a lot of the people that are putting this stuff up now, they're a bit more specialized in writing in this post social media era where this is what they know. This is how they know a world to generate buzz or to get seen with whatever they're putting out there. And obviously you come from a more holistic experience. I mean, you've been in this game for years, well before anyone thought of social media, and understand everything related to it. And you also have other jobs besides just what you do as a journalist or a broadcaster. I mean, you're an author, you're a podcaster, you're a radio host, and you're a DJ. You've seen what it's like, so you have that full understanding and perspective. And I'd actually like to talk about that piece of it, the DJ piece, because I know that you've been doing sets now that the world is starting to open back up and stuff. And how do you feel like the energy is? How do you feel like the energy is pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic when you're out in crowds now?
I feel my immediate view is that the fans are more passionate than ever before. I get DM'd weeks before the show. You're gonna play this at your set. I've never had that before. It's crazy. Like I've had people, like when I did Leeds Festival recently, can you play Little Peep? Can you play this track? Can you do that? And like for anybody to take the time out to do that, for me, like 9 times out of 10, I'm already gonna do it anyway. But I'll make the effort because it's like it's dope feedback. It's listener fan feedback, whatever. And I feel like that's a privilege. It's a privilege to have the audience reach out and say, we'd like you to do this at this event that you're DJing at. So, for instance, with it was the same with Wireless. Somebody reached out to me and was like, "Can you please play some Donda? Can you?" I was like, "Of course." I was just going back and forth in DMs because Jail would sound incredible. And I'm like, yeah, it's like, yeah, like, of course I'm going to do that. And I think from that aspect, I feel like the fans are more passionate. I feel like they want to really mosh. The kids just want to mosh harder than ever before. I was at a Little Uzi show recently, and I was DJing, and I killed it. Excuse my confidence when I talk about what I do on stage. But
hey, man, you got to say it with your chest.
Yeah. I killed that shit, right? So, and then 10 minutes into the set, the soundman comes up and says, "Oh, it's distorting. I think it's your Trapital box." And I was like, "This isn't good." But I carried on. The crowd was incredible. The footage is on the timeline, the evidence. They loved it. They loved XXXTentacion, word for word. That's one of the tracks you can play from finish to end. They love Switchblades, Little Pete, went crazy to that. Everything. They were going crazy to everything. And the sound was distorting, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I thought, it was too late because I got dragged to do. I got asked to do the show at the last minute, so it was just literally run on stage and turn up. So that's what I did. Bit distorting. I was a bit unhappy with myself because I wanted to be perfect. So then I go to the balcony to watch the Little Uzi show. The whole thing was distorted. His set was distorted. So I don't know if it was an engineer that just maxed out the system or limited it to the max hard or whatever. The fans didn't care. That show was an amazing night. They didn't care that it was like a breaking point, like almost distorted. It was distorting. Like if it was at a 10, it's like it had been pushed to an 11 and it was breaking. They didn't care. Like it's almost like a live show now for artists. It's as much a meet and greet as it is a performance. Like you've got Lil Uzi Vert come on stage, no band. I don't even know if it's a DJ. It might have just been his engineer. I don't know. It's just Lil Uzi Vert and a video screen, and that's the standard for most shows right now. And the cameraman. The cameraman's replaced the hype man, right, at every show. So, but energy, crowd reaction, 10 out of 10. Like entertainment, 10 out of 10. Like afterwards, people had come out. Everybody came out of it bare chested. It was like the entire venue of 5,000 people was in a mosh pit. It was like everyone was soaked. Everyone was dripping wet and sweat. Everyone was like drained, and everyone was like, "Yeah, that's great. It was great." It's like they very, very much were entertained, like to the ninth degree. He couldn't have done any more. He played all his bangers. He played 6 unreleased tracks. And when an artist plays unreleased tracks and they go off, you know it's a good night. You know it's a fan base. You know it's people that appreciate it. So to answer your question, I think the fans are more passionate than ever before. I think they want to go out more than ever before. They appreciate the music more than ever before. They appreciate the artist and they appreciate the experience. So for me as a DJ, it's the best time. It is the greatest time ever. I'm hoping, praying that there isn't another lockdown. Like I'm hoping we're at a point where, all right, we can do this and cope with it. But it's amazing. Like Leeds Festival was definitely the best gig I've ever had in my life. At the age that I'm at, I'm having the best gig of my life. That week, the same week that I did Leeds Festival, Burna Boy did the O2 Arena, 20,000 people. Looked amazing. Leeds Festival, I was on stage in front of 20,000 people. Amazing. As a DJ, I'm just playing tracks. My EP only just came out. It's not even like I'm not, I'm not DJ Khaled. This is just me DJing on stage, killing it. No hype man, nothing. Just me and my cameraman. So it's like, it's like, it was an absolute zoo for the entire time I was on stage. It is a movie. It was everything. And it's the exact reason why I got into this. And I think people appreciate the experience more than ever. That's what I'd say.
That's great. That's good to hear. Yeah, because I think a lot of people weren't sure what that energy was going to be like, especially if the crowds aren't there. But yeah, I saw the footage. You had the crowds live. I mean, whether it was Uzi Vert on stage, I saw when you played Sicko Mode, the crowd just went wild.
Yeah.
That's good to see. And I'm sure like if that's what it's like, what you're seeing in Leeds, that's what it's going to be like in the rest of the world. And I think eventually once things really start to open back up, I know that things are still slightly restricted now, but yeah, I think we got a good future ahead then.
Definitely. And the thing is, Reading and Leeds Festival, that was a rock festival. Traditionally, it was like, there's the kind of place where, Linkin Park and all these other rock acts would play and everything else like that. And then there'd be the odd hip hop acts, right? Might get one on the main stage. Now it's different. That was like the Reading Rap Festival. It was like, everybody was winning on stage. Everybody, the hip hop tent was doing it, the dance tent, like everybody was winning. But the UK drill phenomenon out here is huge, and there's a guy called Russ, tore it up. The Stormzy's huge already, but when Dave came out to perform their track, like a drill track, it's called Clash. That was the biggest moment I'd say of the weekend, basically. And this is like, 100,000 people, whatever the capacity is. It's like it's reciting raps. This is Middle England. This isn't black communities together in one space. This is Middle England. This is like people from across the UK, and it's pop music. Whether it's UK rap, UK drill, hip hop, or whatever, it's mainstream music now. It's not. I can't see it going away anytime soon. We talked about this on my podcast. Is there ever going to be a point where it's too much? But seeing what's happened with, Reading and Leeds Festival, Wireless Festival, and the Donda release and Certified Lover Boy, I don't know. I don't know. I think if people can keep up with the quality music and keep stimulating the crowd and having music that inspires and pushes the envelope and then I don't know. I think it's gonna be here for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. And for folks listening, what Seven and I talked about in the last podcast was about hip hop and whether or not it's going to reach a saturation point. And I think that's a question that both of us get asked often. And yeah,
Mm,
I think for me, it is a lot more to do with the subgenres within hip hop that may ebb and flow as opposed to it as a unit, right?
mm,
Gangster rap has had its ebb and flows, throughout, and it's not nearly what it was in the G Funk era, but
mm,
it's paved way for other types of hip hop to come to the surface. And I think,
mm,
sure, the if you want to call it the certified lover boy sound may
mm,
eventually ebb and flow as well. I don't know about Drake specifically, but I think like he
mm,
himself has found a way to adapt with the times. And I think we'll probably continue to see that. So that's something that I agree with for sure.
mm.
Um,
I mean,
one, oh,
the interesting thing is, and we touched on this last time, is that he sold 74,191 copies week one, which is an incredible result. That's more than Kanye. That's more than Kanye and Drake put together week one out here. It's more than any other UK rapper and everything else. And there's a sense that the more conscious type of rap's gonna be more at the center stage, because I think I hear it all the time. And this is not my opinion. This is some feedback that I'm hearing. Like, people are tired of, they want substance. That's what they want. And I think where in America you've got the J. Cole's and the Kendricks, and that Kendrick verse on the Baby Keem joint, incredible. But over here, there's Dave, there's Little Sims, there's a guy that I've worked with called Boy Nash. We put an EP out, and it's the same thing. It's like, even with that EP that I put out, so great EP. I'm doing my business now. It was like I just did it because I just wanted to do a project that was a foundation block to establish me as a producer, and it was just like I chose this kid because he rapped the rap that I like. But the comments were crazy. Like, everyone was saying the same thing. Like, yo, this is exactly what um this is exactly what I've been looking for. This is substance. This is depth. Da, 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 da. It's what the game's been missing, kind of thing. And I think there's definitely, we may see a shift to that. I'm just going off what everybody's saying. Like, people want more substance in the music. I think Dave has proven that with the numbers that he's done. Is
mm.
crazy. So over here, that's what's happening over here anyway.
Yeah, that's impressive. And I think, too, you have a great purview for this because you're talking to people in different mediums, right? You're talking to people on your radio show, you're talking to
Mm,
people on your podcast, and you get to see the full circle. And one thing that I've wondered for you is obviously you're doing interview style discussions and have done interviews on different types of formats. How
mm,
different do you approach the conversations you may have in a podcast form, like with Hip Hop Raised Me, versus what you
mm.
may do with Extra and what you may do on radio?
Um, for me, the podcast is the director's cut. For radio, it's a very, I'm in town, passing through. Da, 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 da. You gotta keep it light because it's all about the music. With radio, it's about it's about enhancing someone's day. So I'm on in the evenings. So it's my job to put you in a place where, whether you're traveling to a gig or whether you're coming home or whatever, I'm starting the weekend. So my show has to have that turn up energy. I can't do a 60-minute in-depth interview. That isn't going to do it. It's inappropriate for that time of day. So, for instance, I had French Montana on recently, and we was talking about the number of UK collaborations he's done. You could actually draw an infographic of the collaborations that he's done over the years. He's done. He may have done more than Drake. He was one of the first to do it as well, and I was taking him back and forth and we're going through that journey. That's a cool listen for a Friday night, because most of the tracks that he jumps on are classics. So it's a very easy show. It's a very easy listen as a hip hop fan, or if you're a new hip hop fan, you're seeing what this guy's done. It doesn't work the same way in a podcast because of rights issues and everything, and you can't play the music and everything else. So it doesn't work the same way. So with French, the podcasts that I have done with him are more detailed. It's more, his life, his story, what he's been through, the whole thing about, his viewing. immigrants in America and everything else is different. And I couldn't do that on radio in the same way. So it's very, I feel very privileged to be able to do different styles. I feel very, you know, yeah, I've worked a lot to get to this point, but as a fan, it's a privilege to be able to have the trust of people that you've championed over the years and respected, and they're dominating the charts and everything else. We're privileged. I mean, it's the same for yourself when you got the biggest boss, right?
Exactly. Yeah. The biggest boss. Yeah. It's one of those things. And
yeah.
I think that because I've heard you say it in other interviews that you definitely prefer to talk to artists when they're not on their promo cycle. And I think it's because you get to have that director's cut type conversation. But I also think that being able to have that director's type cut conversation comes with trust. And oftentimes it comes with the relationship and credibility. And I think that you are able to build that, and oftentimes by having those promo discussion type conversations when they come up, right? It's like, for instance, just looking at your journey in your relationship with Drake, for instance, you having a promo style interview when he releases So Far Gone puts you in a position that when he's releasing More Life, he's DMing you to be like, hey, Sem, let's chat. And then you get to have that conversation that a lot of people just weren't having right around the time that More Life came. So I feel like, at least from my perspective, it feels like it's a funnel in a lot of ways. So even though you may prefer this medium, you may not be able to do it exclusively.
Yeah. And I think with that first Drake interview, that was done with, I need to introduce this guy to the UK. So that's why it was like, yeah, let's do a promo type thing on a mixtape. You know what I mean? Because no one else would do that. Like, and it's the best way to make it palatable for an audience that may not know who he is. And it's dope to be able to flow in and out of the different styles, you know, for wherever they're needed, you know, for whatever format I'm doing the interviews on. But it's again, I'm just ultimately, as a fan, I just feel incredibly privileged to be able to sit down with different people in different capacities, you know. And I think it's invaluable experience. I don't see these talks as interviews. I see them as lessons. You know, I see them as chapters in a book. And I feel like, you know, for instance, the episode that I just did with Pierre Bourne is fascinating. There's a lot of parallels between him and Kanye West. You know, he's a young producer. He raps on his own beats. He's an entrepreneur. He's doing fashion and everything else. And he's doing a sound that defines, you know, hip hop in this generation, you know, for this generation. What his experience and his thought processes and his beliefs and fascinating. It's like very, very inspiring. But it's like I said, it's a lesson for anyone coming through. Like his approach to, you know, even the fact that he was saying plan, plot, and execute. I haven't heard anyone else his age say that. I haven't heard anybody else, you know, the fact that he's got that, and you know, he's coming through in a different time. There's a lot more mentorship now than there was 10, 20 years ago. But it's still, again, there's a learning to get from that talk, like somewhere for someone. So it's a responsibility to get it right. You know, I've got to get the detail out of him. I've got to ask him about how he feels about 6ix9ine using one of his tracks without actually saying it. You know what I mean? So it's like, and then he gets upset for the rest of the interview. It's like, I just put it in a different way so it's not headline grabbing or saying the same thing that's been asked loads of times. And I was just, you know, I did it differently. How do you feel when, you know, you make music and that your DNA is in your music and your soul? How do you feel when it goes to someone you didn't expect it to? It's a different, better answer. You get a better answer, and he's still in a good mood. So
yeah,
and
that's a good point. Yeah, so. Because I think about, like, even, you know, we mentioned earlier, like my interview with Rick Ross. Part of it, I knew, okay, he just released a book. He is on a tour, so I know that I'm not going to be able to necessarily get as deep in the conversation. But after reading the book, there's so many things you want to be able to dig into, but you're also cognizant of, Like, I'm not out here just trying to generate blog posts about like, oh, what Rick Ross said about Kanye West and Drake beef. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
as
yeah,
concerned about
yeah,
that,
yeah,
but you're still trying to balance that with everything. So it's
yeah.
interesting. And obviously, I think, you're a pro at this, just given that example. And I think that the people that are good at this are able to help distinguish between the two of those and can still get the things they want. I mean, there's an art to this, right? Like,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a huge
definitely.
art to how you have
Yeah.
these.
And I think even the way you launched the Rick Ross conversation, it was like that tweet, like, I'm gonna be talking to the biggest boss. It's like everyone's like, oh shit, he got it. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah, yeah.
it. I don't think any other platform would have done that. They wouldn't have said that, and they wouldn't have an audience that would understand what that means. You know, it's a very it's a very it's a very great time to do what we do, and I think we're in an environment where our reputations will only get bigger and bigger, and you know travel. So the next, because even what I get now is a lot of managers say I did an interview with Bobby Sessions, like, so for the podcast, and he was great. He's amazing. He's incredibly inspiring as well. His whole approach to things and everything else, and his whole thing about manifesting destiny and in self-fulfilling prophecy, everything, all of that. He's a walking book on stuff like that. But he said, look, my manager said, like, when I first started working, at this point in your career, you're going to do the Semtex interview, and da 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 da, and it's fascinating to hear that. It's like it's on the list, but you've got a manager who is probably from my era, who's telling a younger artist, you need to do this at this point in your career. Crazy. So I'm incredibly privileged.
Yeah, no, definitely. And last question actually for you before we let you go. You had mentioned something else in the interview that really stuck out to me. You had said that hip hop in a lot of ways has changed the podcasting world. Can you
Hmm.
talk more about that?
Yeah, because I think with there's a lot of podcasts and different styles of things and everything else, but I think we like the conversation. And when I say we, I say the hip hop community. Worldwide, not just in America, like in the UK and everywhere else around the world. And we like that thirst for the inside detail. I think Joe Budden's been very instrumental in bringing light to this. I know there's other people that have been doing hip hop podcasts for years, and it's no disrespect to them, but I think, for instance, when Joe Budden was talking to Pusha T, um, that you couldn't do what he did with that. That could not be done on radio. It could not be done in a magazine or anything else. That conversation, and there is a generation of people now that would rather watch Joe Budden talk for 3 hours than late night TV. The days of people just watching anything that comes on after midnight on TV are done. People are going through the YouTube channel. People, whether it's the algorithm kicking in or whether it's someone trying to find out about their favorite artist, it's the conversation. It's the director's cut. So you've got the Semtex director's cut. Now you've got the academics, like, alternative director's cut. There's different angles. I don't do what I love academics. That's my guy. I interviewed him before he started to do Everyday Struggle, literally the day before, and he couldn't talk about it and everything. But even before that, I rated the way he put his YouTube clips together. It was like a lot of information. It was entertaining. It's fast paced. What he does is totally different. But even with him, you know, there's a weird, there's a weird, there's a weird attraction to what he did with Whack and that 6ix9ine podcast. I never heard the podcast, but I heard the podcast. And I heard the podcast on the timeline. I found myself going to Clubhouse to hear Whack 100 talk about the podcast. I found myself in rooms listening to people complaining about academics having these people on the podcast. I was like, this is crazy. It was in a weird way, like, academics does a podcast with Spotify that I haven't listened to, I haven't had time, but it's so well publicized and everything else. He's given Clubhouse, like, you know a new hype. Just as, the golden age of Clubhouse was like 6 months ago and it's done. Like everyone's like, yeah, had enough of it at a certain point. But then all of a sudden, academics does something, and it's the new conversation on Clubhouse. There's people getting upset, and there's people, like giving out their opinions and everything else. And it's all from podcasts. I've never seen any other podcast do that. I like what Joe Rogan does, but I don't see it travel like that unless it's him someone trying to cancel him. So it's like with and even from what Rosenberg and Cypher did back in the day, that was mad funny. It was different. It was like it was dope what they did. It was a different conversation, different style. But I think in this era of increased technological advances and 5G and everything's faster and there's more channels and we have the gram, we have Twitter and Facebook's for like when you want to look at what you did when you was a kid or family and friends or whatever. But now you've got platforms, you don't know what goes on. Like you don't know what goes on in Clubhouse unless some shit's going down on Clubhouse. Then you can find out what's going on, or you'll see a screenshot of a room on Clubhouse or whatever. They can't manage that. I mean, good luck to them trying to like whatever they're trying to do with their platform. You can't manage it. It's so in real time. But then you've got, there's an artist I know called Matronica who is in Discord groups. The guy just made a track in a Discord group with 2 other producers. And they're all in the UK, all in other parts of London, not that far apart from each other. But the fact that they're producing in real time, in perfect internet quality, and it's like, yeah, I just finished this track, is crazy. And I feel like it's the hip hop thirst for real time information, progress on your favorite artist, or progress on the artist that you want to hate. It is unrivaled in any other genre. It is unrivaled in any other field of entertainment. I know true crime podcasts are very, very popular. The audience for those is not doing what we do. They're not doing what we do. They're not going to go to Clubhouse. Oh, what's going on? What? Like, it's not, and then join in as well and whatever. It's none of that. It's just, as the hip hop fan is the ultra consumer, the hyper consumer. And that's music, clothing, information, entertainment, everything. We can't get enough of it. We can't, like, it's a wonder people's brains haven't overloaded. They say that the amount of communication and information that we consume on a daily basis is now something like 27 gig, right? I don't know how that was worked out, but it's something like that. That's going to be 50 gig very, very soon. It's only going to get faster. They're only going to want more. Kendrick's going to put out this album. We're going to want another one within 3 months. And we're going to, and this is the other thing. It's like, even the announcement for Kendrick Lamar, it's on a note. It's on a note. It's not a press release. It's not, that's what, going back to what we're saying about journalists, it's not being announced by a publication. It's a note, right? And then, with the whole Kanye posting text exchanges and everything else, Kanye making announcements on the gram, like Universal put out my album without permission. No context. No one has a clue what it means. No one, but it becomes a thing and it becomes a news story and it's on every news platform and everything else. Again, that thirst for what's going on, what's happening, It's like, and I feel that's why hip hop has blown up podcasts differently, because I think the content of certain podcasts carries gold, and that gold is consumed. The fans want more. And I think the podcast market it's got to evolve into something else soon, because there's too many. Everyone's doing it. Every corporation, every platform, there's a podcast for everything, right? And there's only so much the human being can consume in, let's say they're awake for, 16 hours. There's only so much a consumer can do in that time, and TV is fighting for that attention, video games fighting for that attention, music and everything else. So it's something's got to give or something's got to evolve. And I think all roads lead to TikTok. I think TikTok is the platform that is evolving before our very eyes, and no one over 16 has a clue what's going on with it. No one over 16 has a clue how to use it. No one's figured out how to use the timeline. No one. It's just. But the creators on there, what they're doing is crazy. It's insane. Like every artist, whether you're a DJ, journalist, whatever you do as a creative, your future competition is coming through TikTok right now, and that's it. Because they're using the combination of accessible technology, the video, the captioning, the audio aspects, and that need to get a message across in a short space of time. They're evolving with that, and most regular people haven't even caught up with that yet. They just see the odd meme or the odd TikTok which goes viral. But where that's going now, and now they're going to be doing 20-minute clips, that's a problem for TV. TV's done, because whatever that's going to look like, it is a problem for TV. Because TV, Netflix, however we look at that now, TikTok doing 20-minute shows, I don't even want to know what that's going to be like. 27 gig, 50 gig. That's where it's going.
That's a good point. You're right. Yeah. And I think that the hip hop piece of it specifically, they found a way to have, as you put it, these directors cut conversation, but hip hop just did a better job of repurposing the content to make it everywhere and hitting people, right? Because as we often talk about, this is a culture and you want to hit people everywhere that they're at, whether it's the follow-on discussions on Clubhouse or the clips everywhere. Yeah, that's really what it is. So no, I'm glad you mentioned that piece of it. And yeah, man, I think you're a living testament to it yourself. And it's just been great to, watch you on this journey. I mean, I knew once you launched this podcast, I was like, oh yeah, he's going to be set. He knows exactly how to, work this thing and keep it going. So no, man, this is dope. It was really great to have you. And like we said the last time, we got to have like a annual recap or something like that. So this definitely we'll link up again soon. But before we let you go, you already dropped a few artists that people should be checking for, but specifically from the UK, who are some people that people should be listening to? Like, they know about Stormzy, but like, who else should they be checking out?
Yeah. They should know about Dave. They should know about Little Sims. They should know about Boy Nash. They need to know about Digga D. Crazy. Digga D is insane. Like, he's one of the guys that taught Reading Festival as well. They need to know about Russ. And there's a female artist, she's called Shabo. Crazy. There's so many great artists coming out over here, and they all want to crack America. They've all got it in their sights. They want it. They all want to be at Madison Square Garden. All of that. So they're coming.
That's awesome. Good stuff. Yeah. Well, Sam, thanks again, bro. This is a pleasure.
Always, man.